I'm just about to lose my mind. You can love me too. And all the ways that I love you. And if I ever loved you, then I know just what I do. I treat you like a queen and make every dream come true. Oh, baby, I'm crazy about you, and I'm just about to lose my mind. Oh, I'm just about to lose my mind.
Hi, this is Steph, and you're listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, broadcasting from New Haven, Connecticut.
I just want to dance.
Good morning and welcome to WNHH Radio's Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make New Haven tick. Well, George Pete, Jeff Patton, McCoy Moore, and Rosemary Fuentes make New Haven tick and keep us safe. They are some of the unsung heroes who work the city's 911 emergency call center, otherwise known as PSAP, Public Service Answering Point. It just so happens to be National Telecommunicator Week. You might not even know that was there, but it is. And once you know, they're here in the WNHH studio to tell us about the work they do day in and day out. We want to thank Yale New Haven Hospital for providing support for today's program. Thanks, everyone, for coming in.
Thank you.
And I'm going to ask you folks, when you talk, please get so close to the mic, you're almost touching it. And so who's watching the shop while you're in here? It seems like we got a lot of the crew here, supervisors, directors, dispatchers. We got a full crew there?
Yeah, so we have a full staff that works rotating shifts. So there's always somebody there, 24/7.
And they take every time you're down 911, that's where you go. And then the dispatchers, if something's emergency, keep the person online to get information and in some situations not hurt themselves. And then you make quick decisions about having police and fire notified so they can go to the scene, and then you follow up, correct? Good way to put it? Yeah. And I've been in that center a bunch of times, and boy, is it stress when something comes in. I mean, a lot's riding at stake.
Yeah.
What you guys
very
do.
stressful.
And so tell us about this week. What is National Telecommunicator Week, and why are we celebrating it?
Well, it was started in 1991. Well, approved by Congress in 1991. But it's pretty much, the telecommunicators that we have, we are the first line of responders. So when it comes time to someone's having an emergency, my mother can't breathe, or, my son's having problems, the first thing you do is you call 911 and you hope to get a comfortable voice on the phone to try to help you out through your situation. And it's a great way to give, this week is a great way to give the people that answer the phones kind of recognition, because we don't get that. A lot has come on the news when something goes wrong. It's the first thing you hear. Oh, I called 911, but, not realizing, we're doing thousands of calls a month. Every time you call 911, someone is there to answer a phone. We miss a lot of family time, a lot of personal time that we could, do other things. But again, we are a 24-hour agency, so someone is always there. Someone's always manning the phones, and it's we don't necessarily get that closure. Somebody gets taken to the hospital, or
You don't even find out, right, whether someone lived or not.
No.
I remember during the K2 crisis on the Green, I was interviewing some of the operators and how stressful it was for them not knowing what was the fate of the people. Now, how do we commemorate this week? What do we do?
So, the department, this whole week we've been having little games, prizes. Management has been buying us food.
What kind of food? Was it good food?
That's good. Yeah.
What they buy you?
Well, yesterday we had breakfast. We had eggs, bacon, sausage. We had it all. We have this massage therapist come in, so we've been getting massages. And they've been, they also recognize the hard work that we do, and they're just trying to give back and thanking us, and we appreciate it.
All right. And how many people work for PSAP?
So it's a department of 57.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we currently have 44 operators, total of 46, but we have some vacancies. So if anybody's interested in a job.
No, let's get yours to get real close.
So we had some vacancies. We have 44 working right now. 46 is our total. We have 8 supervisors. So it's a department of 57.
Mm-hmm. And so now tell us, we said briefly what happens is you're the folks who take the calls, you have all those maps going, so you see stuff coming from, you get the information on all these screens at once about where people are calling from. Remember once when I walked in there, I was looking at some screens, all of a sudden a man I know very well, his name pops up on the screen, he had a heart attack. I was like, you can see that happens all day. More specifically, what should people know about your work? You want people to know the work you do, how you keep them safe. What in addition, know that you're taking the calls, you don't get closure. What do you want people to know this week on National Telecommunicator Week?
Most importantly, please use 911 appropriate.
It's like don't call if you hurt your finger.
If you are having a life or death emergency, if you are a victim or a witness of a crime in progress against persons or property, call 911 immediately. Please understand we have to ask questions to get appropriate information so that we can send the appropriate response.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good to send the wrong response. We have to make sure that we're getting as much information as possible so that we send as appropriate a response as possible as quickly as possible.
So what would be an example of a fact you need to get so that where it could go wrong? If you don't get the right fact, the wrong response can go. Can you get real close, Mr. Patton, to the...
All right. Very important is we're going to ask you repeatedly what your address is and what your cross streets are, because we have to make sure whatever we send to the right location.
And then when we're calling 911, if we're on a landline, you know where we are, but if it's a cell phone, you don't?
Right now, I would say the distinct majority of the calls we get are from cellular calls.
And you can't tell where those are?
We automatically get the location of the tower. We do not automatically get the location of the phone itself.
Is the tower always the closest tower, or is the tower, could it be in another state? Could it be Shelton?
The tower could be in another town. It all depends on how much activity is hitting the closest tower to you right now.
So how useful is that tower information?
It gets the call to us.
No, I mean knowing the tower.
From our point of view, it's not necessarily that useful.
Yeah.
But if someone isn't aware of where they are, we can use that information to determine where you are.
How?
It just takes us longer to do it. We have to query the system to rebid your location, and then as long as your cellular phone is on with an active connection, the computers provided by your cellular company and the phone itself will re-verify where your actual
How long
device
does that take?
Depending on the connection you have, what level of service you've got, how many bars you've got, it could take a matter of a minute or two to a matter of us having to call your provider to get them to email us your location.
So that could take how long?
That could take up to 15 minutes.
Wow.
And
so that's one example. Obviously, if you don't know where someone is, you can't send them help.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't there other kinds of major pieces of information, like really trying to, so that you can know whether you need the fire department, the police department, or whether like someone's about to die, or like they're just understandably upset about something, and in fact, it's better to send somebody to someone who might die when you have to triage.
Yes. When you're reporting a medical incident, we understand that you may not have any medical training, so we're going to ask you information that any person should be able to answer. Is the person conscious? Is the person alert? Are they responding when you give them stimulation? When you snap your fingers or call their name, are they looking towards you? Are they acting like they are all there? Are they breathing? If the person's not breathing, that's going to automatically elevate the level of response because that is imminent threat to life. And that's going to get the highest level of medical response right off the bat. If there's significant bleeding, if there's a known history of any kind of major medical concern.
So you need to ask the right. You want people to know. Call for the right reason. Get ready to answer some questions. What are some things you don't call for?
You don't call 911 if your power went out.
Isn't there like a 311 or doesn't UI have
There's
a
211 to call for your power outage. All of the power companies have an emergency outage report. You certainly could call 911 if you smell gas, because that's a slightly different utility with a much different volatility than the electricity. Might flip my switch and the lights.
What would be another example of when to call and when not to call? We got the general thing, which is like life is in danger, life or death emergency, or you witness a crime in progress.
One of the things we tell people is, if there's a question in your mind, should I call 911 or should I call a different number? Call 911. If you're in a situation that you're contemplating whether you're making the right decision or not, go with calling 911. It's better to call 911. We want people to call 911.
Err on the side of safety.
Absolutely. That's what.
How about if you cut your
teach
finger?
the public.
Like
now, if you cut your finger, minor things, it depends. You know, some younger parents, they're not sure, so they call. We give basic first aid instruction over the phone. We're all trained to do that. But we ask the people to put a little thought into when calling 911. But if there's any hesitation, just go ahead and call.
All right, we're not going to hesitate to tell you that you're listening to Dateline New Haven, and we're talking about National Telecommunicator Week with some of the unsung heroes from New Haven's 911 emergency call center. We're talking to George Pete, Jeff Patton, Nicole Moore, and Rosemary Fuentes. So, Rosemary, how long have you been a dispatcher at 911?
I've been dispatching for 4 years.
Why did you go into the job?
Honestly, I stumbled into it, but once I started working, I became passionate about it. It's very rewarding, going home and knowing that you were able to help people when they were in most need. So I've been fire dispatching for 3 years. I also call take and
What's it mean to fire dispatch versus police dispatch? Don't you not know till the call comes in what it is?
So the call takers receive the initial call, and they basically wrap up the call and send it over to the fire dispatchers, and we send either EMS, the firefighters. Every call has a different response. Like if someone cut their finger, it would be only AMR. Now, if someone's having a heart attack, now we send the paramedics with a whole engine. So we decide what response, what gets what.
So tell me about the day you'll never forget so far.
The day I would never forget, I remember I was actually training my coworker, Kendra. I'm never going to forget this because it was actually a good outcome. A woman called, she was in labor, and we actually helped deliver this baby. So
that wasn't the Ellikers, was it? Or was that somebody else?
This was like 4 years ago. And that was an outcome also that, once we disconnected with her, we never knew, what happened. We never knew the baby's name or things like that. But I'm never going to forget it. It was a great call, and, it was a positive one.
But what you said, it came out okay?
So the fire department did contact us back, and they told us that it was a baby girl. The mom was healthy. The baby was healthy.
Okay. So how did you walk them through? Like that was your first year on the job. Tell me about it.
It was actually I believe it was my second week training on the floor with my coworker. And we have guides that help us walk them through. So, we gave him instructions. We helped him calm down his wife. We helped calm him down.
Oh, so the dad called.
Yeah, the dad called.
And then you gave the instructions?
We gave instructions. Yep.
What was the first instruction?
Well, the first instruction is always make sure the woman is not on the toilet. That's the first one.
On the toilet?
Oh, yes, on the toilet.
Because I do know someone who gave birth on the toilet on
Yeah.
the way to the hospital. Why not in the toilet?
Well, it's very dangerous because, if the baby does come out,
Ooh.
it can just, fall in there, get her. So,
You mean get drowned? Or?
well, they can hit the toilet. Like,
So it's the
when it comes
enamel
out
that's
with
the
pressure,
bigger
it can hit-
dangerous than the water.
Yeah.
Hitting a head on the enamel.
Right.
Why do people go in the toilet?
I don't know.
Feeling.
I think
Yeah.
I think it's just
Feeling
they
of
feel
pressure.
more comfortable and like maybe like to push.
Yeah,
they have
that
that.
does make sense. I wonder if you could simulate in a it's not your job, but you could simulate being on a toilet, like being in that position in a hospital to push.
Yeah, I mean, for every call we get, and I think this is a lot of people don't realize. For every call we get, we're although we're not there with them, we kind of are.
Yeah,
Like everything that
yeah.
they're going through, we're kind of going through with them.
Yeah. Yeah, George, tell me you're about to say something there, George.
It's why we're known as the first responders, because we're the first ones on scene. It's only by voice, but we're the first one there giving them aid. So,
And so how long you been with the department, George?
I've been there 23 years now.
And you started as a dispatcher?
I started as a fire dispatcher, 200 Orange Street.
Oh, it used to be at 200 Orange.
Yeah, it used to be at 200 Orange Street, and then the city merged us all together with the police back in 2009, 10.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And please get close to the mic. So
Yep.
what's the day you'll never forget?
day I'll never forget. I think of recent, the day I'll never forget was 2013, the bad snowstorm we had with us.
Snowmageddon.
Yeah, the snow
3
was up
feet
to
of
my
snow.
hip,
Yeah.
I was at work and staying late because we were very busy, staying with my staff.
What kind of shifts were you guys doing?
Well, we were doing longer shifts, and we ended up doing the longest shifts because nobody could go home. That's why we'll never forget. I looked out the window and could no longer see the street and saw that the snow was as high as the parking meters out in front of the police station. So,
So how many hours were you there?
we were there just over 24 hours. And then we managed to get home through the help of the National Guard, fire department, so forth.
And then what do you remember most about that? Like, is there
I
a moment
remember-
then?
We were so overwhelmed with 911 calls. I remember trying to help the staff out and answering a 911 call, and people being trapped in cars because they were trying to drive and their car would get stuck. And we were in the middle of the blizzard, and they couldn't get out of their car, and we could not get them help.
So what did
trucks
you do?
Fire trucks were getting stuck as soon as they hit
Right,
the street.
right.
They couldn't move. It felt awful to almost tell people to do the best that they could, and we would get to them as soon as possible.
So what would you tell them to do? Like, what would you tell them about in the car so
try
they'd be
to-
okay?
Try to stay as warm as they can, keep the engine running. If they could get out of the car, make sure the snow is not near the exhaust pipe.
Or let me get that.
keep
So
it
try to stay
clear.
more warm as you can.
Try to stay as warm as you can.
And well, if you can't, is there any danger in keeping the engine running in terms of poisoning
yeah, there
yourself?
is. We told them, go outside and make sure that they could get the snow away from the exhaust pipe. Do crack the windows in the car just a little bit so some fresh air can get in. If they had any water or snacks in the car, to utilize those.
And then had you heard of anyone?
No, we
having
didn't
a
hear of
benefit?
anyone. The fire department somehow made it out. I think eventually the National Guard was.
I remember
was with
seeing
them.
one firefighter who they got it out to get a baby delivered. You remember that?
Yeah,
one?
we had a baby delivered. They actually delivered the mom through the snow in a piece of heavy machinery. Yeah,
Yeah,
with
wow.
firefighters.
Oh,
Yep.
that's a memorable night.
Organizing all that.
Who
that's
else was working during that blizzard? Anyone here?
I was there.
I think
So tell
McCoy
me,
was there,
Nicole,
yeah.
tell me, what do you remember about the blizzard?
That the call that was made to tell the oncoming staff not to come in. That was kind of when I knew it was getting bad out.
Where were you?
I want to say I was dispatching police that day.
So you were in,
Yes.
and you were
Yes.
dispatching police. And what else do you remember about that?
I just remember, the sergeant that was in charge that evening for the police department, just telling the officers to be safe. Try to park up somewhere safe, or if you're near a substation, go there, and trying to coordinate with Public Works to get the street plows out, out
Mhm.
and certain routes where they were like were busy for police calls where they had like maybe a
George
domestic or
talked about that
something.
feeling of frustration when you can't use your usual solutions for people, so you have to give them other solutions.
Mhm.
Can you think of an instance the way George gave an example when they're trapped in their car of a new kind of advice you had to give on the fly that was different from what you would have done when there's not a blizzard?
I Yeah, it did. People actually got the idea to stay home. A lot of times, especially when we have heavy rain, there's certain parts of the city that are below sea level, so they
Like
tend to
right
flood a
outside your
lot.
window.
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah, right
That's one of the flood
there.
zones. Yeah.
The beginning of Middletown Avenue over by Quinnipiac near like First
Mhm.
Student.
Morris
Those
Cove.
areas
Yeah.
are, over by the Brewery Street, by the post office.
So do you have a story remembering a heavy rain and something that happened?
Yes, a heavy rain and a lady called and she's scared. She tried to drive through. You know how they always say don't drive through a puddle where you can't see the bottom. And she tried to drive through. I think she said she had a Honda Civic or something, and she tried to drive through it. And now she's screaming. Her car's floating, and she needed help. And she wondered why there was an ambulance not too far, but why they weren't walking over to her, and
Mhm.
she didn't want to get wet. She didn't want to open up her doors to get her inside of her
So
car
what'd you
wet.
tell her?
I told her, unfortunate, we were sending her help, but sometimes you want to try to get people to, if you can self-evacuate, sometimes it's easier. So, ma'am, if you feel safe, if you are able to open up the door, are you able to, walk to, where the ground is higher, or
Mhm.
something like that.
And
But
was she able to?
yeah, she actually was. She wasn't too happy at first, but when once
She
she
was
saw,
saying she was scared to get out.
yes, but once she saw engine 4 pulled up and truck 1 came by, and then they were able to extricate her safely.
But she got herself out.
Yes, she got herself out, and then they walked. They were able to get closer to her, and then they escorted her out the rest of
So
the
they
water.
couldn't get through the puddle. It was that big.
No, it a lot of times in responding, it's not only a safety issue for the person, it's a safety issue for the responders going in. And that's one of the reasons why we
So
do.
their trucks couldn't go through a puddle that a Honda Civic couldn't?
Well, it gets to be kind of deep, and then you risk, now having a $1 million piece of apparatus
Yeah.
waterlogged, and it's kind of why we ask so many questions when someone calls 911.
So what was she able to do? Did she step into the puddle, or what did she
Yes,
do?
she was able to step in and was able to. I think when talking to one of the firefighters who was on scene, the water was probably up to about their knees.
Mm.
And so, they're able to wade in and get her out. There have been times when it's been earlier, when the water's been higher in certain places.
Yeah.
But
We're talking about these dramatic stories with the heroes, but unsung heroes of the city's 911 emergency call center. We're doing that in Dateline, New Haven. Your home for community radio at 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhavenimprint.org. We're with George Pete, Jeff Patton, Nicoy Moore, and Rosemary Fuentes. So, Jeff Patton, you've had time to think about your story you'll never forget while your colleagues here have been talking. What's the story you'll never forget?
I guess I'll go with there was a night in, I want to say it was 2003 or 2004. I was police dispatching, and there was a person on West Rock that was suicidal.
Oh, my. Do we hear
And
those?
West Rock is technically not New Haven police jurisdiction, but we were assisting state police, and we were trying to get GPS location for where the subject was, but our GPS mapping system at the time gave the information in a different mathematical formula than what the state system used for Trooper 1. And
That's changed since?
It's changed since. Now the software translates it into whatever format you want. But
So that it wasn't synced. The two
Correct.
software systems not synced.
They reported it in a different mathematical formula. You had to convert it yourself if you wanted to convert it.
Mhm. So what happened? So what did that
I
mean
did the
for
math
you?
and I gave it to them in the system that they needed it, and we got Trooper 1 there to put.
What
the
did it mean to
spotlight
do the
on it.
math? What did you have to do?
So
Did you get a pencil? Did you do it in your head?
I did it with a calculator.
And what did you have to go to coordinates?
I had to take it from minutes and seconds and change it to decimal.
Change what to what do you mean minutes to seconds?
Okay, so GPS is degrees, minutes, and seconds in the old style systems.
Mm-hmm.
And each second, there's 60 seconds in each minute, and there's 60 minutes in each degree. So you do the math, dividing by 60, and that comes up with a decimal number. And then you change it to the decimal number, and then you tell the pilot to punch that in, and they were able to get within 10 feet of where they needed to be, or 10 meters.
And who was they? It was the state?
Trooper 1's pilot.
Oh,
State
they had a
police.
car in the air.
Yeah, the helicopter, Trooper 1.
So the helicopter, you were able to get that person. The person was saved?
No.
Well, what happened?
He was waiting for someone to put a spotlight on him and get a large enough audience, and then he shot himself in the head.
Oh my God! And what was that like for you when you heard that?
It was loud.
Oh my God! So you heard the
I
shot?
heard it. Yep.
Oh my God! And then what were you thinking?
Uh, we lost that one. You don't win everyone.
But one thing I've heard from other folks in your position is that you do need a way, and I know that professionals have been dealing with the stress, dealing when the shift is over, with processing a traumatic moment. Was that a traumatic moment for you?
Yeah, I would say so.
And so, how did you deal with it afterwards?
Well,
Did
the
they send you
department
home at
has
that point?
The city itself has a very strong EAP program, and the
Right.
department is very good at that time, we were part of the police department. It was prior to the restructuring that the city went through, and they brought in EAP counselors, and
So you participated in that.
I participated.
And I
found
mean,
it-
one thing I've often heard from some other people in your situation is that you have the veterans. Like, for instance, you two are supervisors,
Yeah.
as is George. So you've been there when a younger person has a similar case.
Mhm.
Do you pull them aside and say, I've been there. I know what you might be feeling. Here's how I dealt with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what do you tell them to do besides be an EAP, Employee Assistance Program?
It's different for each person. Each person has to find the way they have to process something so that they can answer the phone the next time.
Right.
I mean, I picked that one to discuss. I had several to sit here and think about.
Did you, in addition to EAP, what did you do that night? For instance, did you finish your shift?
I did.
You did finish your shift.
Yes.
But then did you know that when you were no longer on the shift, it was going to come back at you? Did you know I'm going to have to think about this?
Yeah.
So what did you do that night? Like after you went home, did you like watch a movie? Did you go right to sleep? Did you take a long walk around the block?
Online gaming.
Oh yeah? Tell me
Yeah.
about that. Even back then, there wasn't as much back then.
WoW's been around since 1997. I'll
Which
just
one?
say WoW, World of Warcraft.
And did you use it that night? That helps?
No, I think I was on EverQuest at that point in time.
EverQuest? So you went home and did that?
Yeah, my wife and I are avid online gamers.
So that helped too.
Yeah, it does help because you just leave the real world behind.
Wow. And, I've noticed, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I was noticing, Rosemary, that you were paying particular attention to this. Were you thinking of a similar moment for you? Were you thinking of a similar moment for you when you had to deal with something like this?
No, I was thinking about how my other my coworkers, cope. I think we all do different things to cope. We have people that knit. We have people that something as simple as coloring, just to, not let it get to you. And something else that I try not to do is I try not to take the situation home with me. I
And
try
how
to
does
leave
one
whatever
go
happens
about
at
that?
work. I try to leave it at work and just go home and, be with my family.
How does that work? You make sure, like I know some officers have told me they come home and they hug their kid even when they're asleep in bed and when there's something horrible happens to a kid or something like that.
Well, I think what helps me, I speak to my coworkers a lot. So if I have a bad call, I'll turn around and be like, oh my God, I just had this call and we'll speak about it. I'll vent to them about it. I mean, a lot of the times I'll go home and speak to my husband about what happened at work and, just, it's sometimes it's good to, hear someone else and their advice and just, to calm you down.
Mm-hmm.
I do try to leave whatever happens at work. I try to leave it at work.
But you say sometimes you do need to tell your husband what happened.
Sometimes the incident is so big and I would say sometimes even traumatizing that you do have to vent to someone and say,
You
this
need to
happened at
vent.
work today.
We're glad you guys do it. We're talking about Dateline New Haven. We were here with 911 Unsung Heroes. So, Mr. Moore, did you want to add anything to this discussion about dealing with the trauma?
I mean, there's everybody deals with stuff differently. When I first started, we had a dispatcher there by the name of Teresa Flowers, and I always give her the utmost respect because she's, the way I was taught, and George was one of my trainers when I first started 15 years ago, and it was, learning then that you take every call like it was one of your family members,
Mm.
because you never know when my mother and father live here. I have cousins. My children were here. So it's you never want someone to drop the ball on a family member, so you treat every call like it is one of your family members. And working one day, and she takes a call for structure fire, and she puts in the address, and was able to stay professional through the whole time and doing her job, knowing that that was her grandmother's house that was on fire.
Wow.
And
Oh my
just 2
goodness.
hours before, she dropped her children off there. So and hearing the radio transmissions, and not missing a beat, the consummate professional that she was, still just making sure that things got done, and listening to the radio transmission, is not leaving that radio.
So what happened to her kids and her grandmother? What in the end happened to her kids and her grandmother?
There was a fatality in the fire. There was her children were able to make it out. They were, but it was just and sitting there and watching her deal with it, and
Yeah.
then I try to put myself in that shoes. How would it be if I had to deal with a family member going through a crisis like that? And so it helps put things in perspective. And then like what people do outside of work to there's a lot of us that meet up after hours and talk, or me going home to the fiance, the kid, everybody finds their different ways of dealing with the stress. 'Cause
Has
if
anyone
not,
in
it'll
this
tear you
room
up.
been in a position like Teresa Flowers? You ended up handling a call that involved your family?
No.
But we are all
No,
family in New Haven, which is part of the point I'm hearing today.
Luckily, no. But there's always that chance where it could happen.
That's right. And Dra Lily Cabrera says, Tan Bella mi nena. Did I say that right?
Oh, my mother-in-law.
So this is listening here. So what about the future of the work? What do you folks see as the challenges upcoming, and how the work has changed, and what you're going to be doing in a new era? Because, I mean, as you mentioned cell phones, for instance, in a way, more people use cell phones, so it's harder to find out where they are.
I see the future of the work being mostly volume.
Is there more than before?
Yeah, the numbers are on the increase. I have last year's numbers
Okay.
with us. The department received 124,151 911 phone calls.
That was in calendar year or fiscal year?
That was for the calendar year
2018.
2018 for just the city of New Haven.
Mm-hmm.
We also answered 253,103 non-emergent calls for police and fire service. We generated 100,664 calls for police service, and that generated 58,000 case numbers and 10,918 calls for expedited police service. The reports they take over the phone and give you a case number that they process so they can do them quicker.
In any sense, how much this has grown over the years?
I believe the 2017 911 volume was 117,000. So probably 6,000 or 7,000 calls just increasing. But I see the biggest thing that's increasing now is the new text to 911.
How long has that been around?
That was launched in September of 2018. And at the first quarter, Department of Statewide Emergency.
I'm sorry, you said November, you said this?
September of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
At the first quarter of 2019, Department of Statewide Emergency Telecommunications meeting, they released those numbers for text volume in the state. And although we only had 106 text calls in that first quarter, it was 9.4% of all text to 911 for the entire state for the first 3 months.
And that's going to change. Now, what happens when you get a text call? Do you then dial the person?
No. You text us, we text you back. It's like when you text your friend and he texts you back and you go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea behind it is you call 911 when you can call 911. But if
for instance, if you don't want to make noise because there's a gunman.
There you go. Or
Ooh.
you, for whatever reason, cannot call 911. Let's say you cannot speak
Ooh.
and you don't have your TTD device, your telephone telegraph for the deaf
Mhm.
device,
Mhm.
but you have your cellular phone with you. You can text us and we can help you.
That's so interesting. So what else have you folks done to prepare for the world of texting?
Well, the state launched a very involved training program last summer. We were one of the initial beta testers for the state because we anticipated a large volume,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, 9.4
and
of the state. That's a
it
lot.
came out to be true. Of the large cities, we were well ahead of all the cities. I think the closest one was Hartford, and it was still under 100. I think it was 97 text calls that they had. We expect as the media advertises this more, we're going to only increase the number of text
Sure.
calls.
So everything becomes text quick.
And then we're going to probably see more spam calls from it. And I guess you're not going to get pocket text because that's always a problem with cell phones. We get pocket dials of 911.
Actually,
But,
that's good for reporters sometimes. Sometimes I get to listen in on some meetings that I wasn't supposed to be attending.
Oh, well, there you go.
Well, anyway, I want to thank you so much for coming in. I'm so glad we got a chance to talk about what you do in a non-emergency situation. And that's because it's National Telecommunicator Week, which I'm so glad you joined us today on Dateline New Haven and WNHH FM. I want to thank our guests, George Pete, Jeff Patton, Rosemary Fuentes, and McCoy Moore. Thanks so much for telling us your stories. Thanks for the work you do.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for keeping us safe. Remember, everybody, call 911 when you need to. If you're not sure if you need to, call. But if it's something like, if you're just worried about your electricity being off or you have a minor medical thing, don't call. And text if you have no other choice, right? Kind of got that down. And remember, you're going to have to answer some questions, and that's going to keep you and us safer as a result. Natalie Cabero says, will always be proud of you and all that you do, Nicole Moore. All right.
Yeah, that's my fiance. She stuck me out there.
All right. Well, it's good to hear from you, too. And thanks to Yale New Haven Hospital for providing support for today's program. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience from their album. I think this is the Afro-Semitic Experience. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long here at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.